revolutionary heroes made sure that they called us the indigenous army, not the African army. When Simon Bolivar of Venezuela wanted help to get Spain out of his country to liberate the other Latinos, he called us, and we went there without hesitation. Our flag has the tomahawk, it has the spear. The original flag was black and red to represent African and Latino blood. I mean, I'm not here to validate myself.
Okay, so
to contribute to the Latino aspect of the community. That's it.
Okay, yeah, sure. African people adopted indigenous culture.
Material. I said that at the beginning. My father's
just because you adopt indigenous culture doesn't make you Latino.
Taino. That's it. So what about
Asians mostly have a haplogroup from Africa. They are mostly African.
And my blood type is O. So I'm not talking about everybody on the island. I'm not generalizing. I'm talking about myself specifically. If you carry indigenous blood, you have a right to talk. So who are you from? What's your indigenous background?
Okay, so I'm Mexican American. I'm 46.
Very, very much Latino, just based off of the information I stated beforehand.
Okay, so your people, your culture are mostly African. You're a minority. You're indigenous.
My culture is Afro-Latino.
Asians are not Latino.
Afro-Latino. Our language is mixed with both Taino and Spanish and French dialects, and that's why it's called Creole. My food is using all indigenous ingredients. My country still holds its indigenous name.
Again, your African people can adopt indigenous culture.
I'm not here to justify myself. Go back to your original question, okay?
So my original question is that, so your sister's adopted, she has Cambodian heritage, okay? And you said if she dates
No, I said she did.
within the
She had a
Latino
child
community,
with
she
a
can become
Haitian
Latino?
man. She had a child with a Haitian man. They have a son. And so
Okay, so and then you said that they're Latino, right?
His father.
Did your sister marry a Latino or a Haitian?
She had a child with an Afro-Latino.
Okay, so what makes a Haitian man Afro-Latino?
Because we carry the genetic material of both the indigenous Taino Arawakan people as well as the Moranic people. We have multiple tribes that were brought into our island at the time of the Economienda.
The Dominicans have more indigenous blood than Haitian.
You speak Spanish or not?
If you're going to be talking about Dominican versus Haitian, I already know where this is going to go. And what I'm going to tell you is this right now. When Enriquillo was doing the rebellion, he was the first person on the island of Haiti because he joined forces with both the Africans and the indigenous people to get a treaty in the Americas that gave indigenous and colored people free land and freedom. Okay? And that's because they joined together. Toussaint Louverture did the same thing and then continued to go throughout the Americas and free other people's countries. Dominicans, you have your side of the island because you wanted to go and kiss Spain's ass. So before you come over here talking about how much
Wait, hold on.
Let's not
Wait, hold up. Why are you getting so angry and emotional?
Okay, wait a minute. I'm gonna put a timeout here. Okay, it's getting heated. So I appreciate both of your opinions here. I'm gonna go with Z. I think it was next, and then Lex, and then we're gonna go to Viance. I think it is like that. All right, and then we'll move forward. Go ahead, Z. What's going on, man? Z. What?
No, I was just talking about, it's all about the culture. I was going on with that other white boy was saying. Yeah, you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Yeah. It's all about the culture, bro.
He's not a white boy, by the way. But go ahead.
Whatever.
He's Mexican.
I hear an echo somewhere.
See, go ahead, please.
Z, you can unmute and talk.
No, I'm done, bro. I can't hear too well.
Or you can go down and then come back up again. It happens to a lot of people, man. So Lex,
hey, Loki, you fine though, bro. I saw your page.
All right, you guys can hook up later, man. Okay, this isn't the Love Boat, man. Go ahead, Lex.
My bad. You want me to identify myself, you said?
Yeah, are you Latino, Hispanic, white, black, Asian? What are you? Indigenous?
I'm yeah, honestly, I came up here to be more educated. You know, I'm ignorant.
He asked you what your
Yeah,
background was.
yeah. I'm gonna
Can
get to
you
that.
speak?
I'm Latino, and my my mom's from Michoacan, and my dad's from Zacatecas.
Okay, go ahead, man.
Yeah, yeah. So I was just here to get more educated. To be honest, I see a lot of people have pride in their culture and their race. There's a lot of I've heard my black friends talking about, you know, they want a black wife, they want to keep it black. Heard the same thing with my white friends. There's also been some other people, you know, like Asians talking about they want their daughters to marry a Chinese man, or have you know, an Arabic daughter to, you know, marry an Arabic man. And there's a lot of pride in these things. I get that, and I understand that. There's a lot of people that want their culture and their bloodline to be passed down, and you know, like they don't want it to mix with anything else. I get that, but to be honest, what the bigger problem to me is with a lot of people I've met, ex friends and things like that. What like pisses me off more is the way they sexualize races and people from different nationalities and shit like that. There's a lot of people who just kind of say things in like degrading ways. I mean, they look at people from Mexico or like really any other Latino country as they just kind of sexualize it. You know, it pisses me off, in my opinion. If my sister were to, you know, go date a black or white man or an Asian man, I wouldn't. I would want it, like, I wouldn't have a problem with it unless it's innocent. Unless like that person's not only with her because she's Latina, or you know, if anything of that matter, really. If it's like if the culture is still there, and this person actually loves her not because of her nationality or a race, then I'm like, you know, I think that's okay. That's innocent. That's love, and I wouldn't want to segregate them just because it's because of their culture or their race or their nationality. I wouldn't care about that. If my sister is happy and in love, and it's the same with the other dude, then I don't see a problem in it. I just, you know, I just hope the other guy is love is genuine, and it's not just him sexualizing my sister because of her nationality or her race or anything like that. And yeah, that's the only problem that I see. If they're just sexualizing her
And how you're
Oh, did she mute or somebody mute her? I don't think anybody muted her. I think she muted.
Am I next,
Okay,
or
it makes sense. Yeah. I think it's yeah. You're next. Woke. You would like to. What would you like to add to the conversation here?
yeah, I've been hearing both sides, and as for the prompt, like, so for me personally, I'm from California. I'm Mexican American. Like, just recently found out I'm half Otami, and then just half, like, other side of my family comes from Portugal. So yeah, if you're pretty much Mexican American, like today, like current day, you're pretty much most likely mixed. You know, you're indigenous, and then you're Spanish or Portuguese. You know what I mean? Just because of, like, you know, colonization during that time. My whole thing
So
too-
pretty much like it's just pretty much the way it's been for about 500 years.
Yeah. No, like she was, like homegirl was saying right now, like, you're never really, like, it's rare to meet somebody who's 100% anything nowadays. You know what I mean? Because we've all been mixed pretty much. And speaking on, you know, the prompt too, it's like, you know, should natives and Latinos choose with the future generations? Yeah, I think there's no problem in choosing who you want to be with. You know what I mean? Because me personally, like, I had this conversation recently. I don't date outside of, you know, like Mexican, Latina, you know, Hispanic, whatever, just because, like, for me, that's what's most comfortable. That's what's my family going back, like, you know, 6 generations. Like, that's me. So I don't think that's a bad thing to say. Just like how, you know, black people say black love, and, you know, that's not looked at as wrong. I do. Okay, now this is more controversial, right? I do believe that interracial couples and interracial marriages, I feel like it is being pushed on society to destroy certain countries. I do believe that because, for example,
Bingo.
For example, you know, if you look at current day France or like current day Germany or any current day like European country, a lot of these countries are really changing, and this is going to be controversial, but it's true for every country, right? Every country has an ethnic identity, you know. It's like if you go to Holland, they're going to be, you know, Danish, like they're white. If you go to Mexico, you know, they're mostly indigenous or Spanish. Like that's what makes these places special. Like these places have their own identity, and I feel like interracial couples and immigrations too much destroys the beauty of these places that, you know, what they're known for. So like that's controversial, you know, some people call that racist, whatever. I just feel like, you know, the whole idea of interracial couples and marriages, it's a new idea. Like it's only really been going on for the past like really like 60 to 100 years. Like let's be real about it. I would say maybe even 60 years for sure. My thing,
You know, I Woke said something, not to interrupt you, Woke, but I just want to touch on it because you brought up something really important. Because if you look at like what's happening in Mexico right now with the quote unquote expats, right?
yeah,
And you see what has happened like in places like Mexico City. So they're complaining because so many European, you know, descendants are migrating over there, and they're saying that the food is too spicy, right? So now you've got some restaurants that are catering to that, and then they're getting angry because they're over in another Spanish speaking country, but they want them to speak English, right?
Yeah.
So that in itself is like changing everything that is within Mexico City. And then you figure if they were to mix, right, on top of that, you're no longer, that culture itself within that area is going to be washed out. It's going to become something other than what it is. And you even have, I'm in some of these expat groups to see what they're up to. You even have some expats who have literally like whitewashed some areas in Mexico and now complaining because it's not ethnic enough.
Yeah.
It's not original enough.
Okay, controversial opinion again, you know, chat, don't get mad, but it's true. Like what she's saying is true, because if you look at it, right, and this is my problem with immigration, just anywhere. If you look at it, you know, the thing is like, for a lot of people that don't know, there in certain areas of Mexico, there's a large migration of Mormons, like Anglo Mormons, and they're taking over communities, right? And yeah, there has been pushback, you know, with the cartels, which I'm not even justifying that or nothing, but I'm just saying that if we let these things get out of control, like the beauty of Mexico in general could be changed. And this is another controversial opinion, but our you know, the current president of Mexico, if you really look into her background, you know, wink, wink, there's something up there. And I'll say that's all I'm going to say on that topic. And I don't think that, you know, I agree with the background that she's from being in the position she's in. Secondly, you know, another example, you know, speaking to, I think her name's Ayana, like, for example, right, let's say, you know, Haiti's not doing too good right now. But let's say, you know, how would she feel if, you know, pushed out and then it's a whole new ethnic group in there, and then they start claiming Haitian, and then, you know, the native Haitians are just gone. Like that's the whole point.
That's what's going on right now.
Yeah, like that's my point.
I don't want to make this into a thing, but like,
hold on, let me finish real quick though. That's my whole point. Like these places, the beauty of these places is that they have a people already, and I really think that immigration, interracial marriages, like although yeah, you can do whatever you want, it does mess up, you know, the background of what makes these places beautiful. You know, I don't want to go, it's going to sound messed up, I don't want to go to France and then not see like the French, you know. I think that's horrible. Like if they're gone, that's messed up. You know, I want to go to France, I want to see French people, I don't want to see, you know, people from Sudan or like, you know, people from, you know, Libya, you know. And that's controversial, that's my opinion. I think that, you know, people just need to take pride in where they're from and make their own places better, and then, you know, don't go somewhere and just completely destroy the culture, because then you're no better than the colonists that did that, you know, to some of our own people. Like that's my opinion. But yeah, hey, good show, host.
All right.
This is a good show.
Thank you. And for your credit, there's people in the comment section saying that you're based as F. All right, so there's a lot of people that agree with you, and there's some people that disagree with you, and that's okay, man. And it's a conversation at the end of the day, man. We're just expressing our opinions about this, man. All right, man. So who do we have next? Who's gonna go next? Jay, what's going on? Then we go with Mr. Punch. What's going on, JJ? Oh,
bad.
Jay,
You
you've
can
been
drop
here for a
me.
couple of times. Be on your best behavior. What's up, Wolf? What'd you say?
Well, you could drop me. I'll let someone else come up.
Okay, listen, man. I'm gonna follow you, man. Callie, you can go ahead and follow me and Callie too. Callie,
Yeah.
that's good to hear. I'm glad that you guys are not going anywhere, man. You guys are actually the relatives of the so-called Latinos and Hispanics. You understand that, right? But go ahead, Punch, and then Native goes after. Okay, go ahead, Punch.
Okay, so is it destroying anything if like a Mexican guy marries a Native American woman? Is that destroying your culture?
Well, you do understand,
Nope.
like I just mentioned right now.
They're
like I just
indigenous to
mentioned
these lands also.
yeah, yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
that's just. I mean,
Well, if you
they're the
just
same
wait
color, but they have
until
separate
he's done.
cultures, though.
Well, to an extent, the cultures are a little bit different, but it does not mean that we're not, like, for example, we are relatives within the same family. You have the different tribes that have similar foods, and you have tribes in North America that have very similar words that you'll find in other indigenous communities in Mexico and in Central America. I don't know if you knew this, but the people who are the Taino, they are actually tied. They actually came from Venezuela. So we've been doing a lot of mixing among each other. So we're kind of like, in that sense, like the same people in a way.
Okay, but well, you were saying like people will like go to Mexico or whatnot and try and destroy their culture, but when the Spanish came to Mexico, they already destroyed the culture. That's literally what they did. The Spanish people were destroying the Taino. I mean, not Taino, but the Aztec culture. So I mean, they're
Yeah,
not like
well,
they're not like a harmony of cultures coming together. One culture came in, dominated, and destroyed the other one.
well,
They got freaky as hell in our yeah. No.
Actually, Punch. Yes, I agree with you. The Spaniards, just like the English and the Africans, they did come and commit atrocities. I do agree with you. But here's the difference, though. And this is, a lot of people don't know that. As much as people are going to, especially the extreme people that don't use common sense, are going to disagree with me. People that have hatred in their heart. But as much as I don't agree with all the stuff that happened in history, in Latin America, we managed to preserve a lot, and I mean a lot, of the indigenous culture, and it
Can you
reflects
speak
upon.
Aztec?
We already do in the Spanish that we speak. So we, in that sense, we are speaking in a way our indigenous language through the Spanish language. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to give you another example. You have the entire country of Paraguay, where there's a mixture. The people there, the population is mestizo, which is mixed with indigenous and European, but you have a lot of white tea people. And guess what? The official language in Paraguay, check this out, it's Guarani. That is an indigenous language. So that is one example I can give you how our
I
cultures
mean, is that like
are
an
indigenous
outskirt?
cultures.
Is that like an
No,
outskirt?
it's the official language. Hold on. And we have also preserved traditions that are fused into this so-called Hispanic Latino culture. It's infused. It's never been lost. It's still there.
Okay, because I was wondering, because like in Mexico City, I know they don't speak any of that. They just speak Spanish in like Mexico City.
Well, they speak the Spanish that we speak, Punch, is mixed with indigenous words.
In Mexico City?
Across Latin America, all Latin America is mixed with indigenous words. And even
Okay.
most of the states and cities, they have indigenous names. Like for example, even here in the United States, you have about 20 states that are named after their indigenous words or indigenous names. Like for example, you have Seattle, that is named after Chief Seattle. You have words like Utah. All these words are indigenous. A lot of people just aren't aware of that.
Okay, and then like what you were saying, like it was an issue, like if I guess like a gringo from America comes to Mexico, like they're destroying the culture. But does it work like that in reverse when let's say a Mexican comes to the United States, are they destroying our culture in the United States?
I don't know. I don't know if they are. I mean, I'm pretty. Look, and I'm
Because
not
I'm pretty
saying
sure
all
a lot
gringos.
more.
I'm
I'm
not
pretty sure a
saying
lot
all
more
gringos.
Mexicans come here than Americans going there.
Well, here's the thing: they're being brought over here. To be honest with you, but here's the thing: I'm not trying to say that every single gringo destroys, and not all of them. Not every single white tea person or African American person that goes to Mexico destroys the culture. But we have noticed that there is an agenda to spread identity politics in order to destabilize and divide our people. I'm talking about in particularly those people who are spreading that agenda. Now, if you say that the Mexicans that come over here, I just want to let you know that Mexicans, Latinos, and indigenous people have actually given the United States a culture.
That's a crazy double standard, dude.
Can I
I'm gonna
say
go ahead.
something?
Can I give you some examples?
Well, do you suggest that we close the borders both ways, or do we just close Americans out from Mexico and Mexicans come to
Punch,
America?
listen, man, I'm not going to get into politics, but go ahead, Callie. Go ahead.
So
Well,
when
I had a
you
few more
say,
questions too, though. But
okay, I'll say something real quick, and then you
Okay, go
can
ahead.
say whatever. So because you made I think it was you that made the comment about, well, they're coming over here. Is correct? Is that what you said?
yes,
Okay, so most Mexican people are actually indigenous, right? So the whole border thing is a European construct. So we've always been on both sides of the border. So if you look at like history, for instance, you had all of these states that was Texas, California, Utah, Nevada, New Mexico, and so on, that was a part of Mexico. And then you had, again, where once California and the other states said that they have now became the United States, they told those Mexican people that they can still have their land, which they're indigenous, by the way. They can still have their land on this side of the border and keep everything intact, which was a lie. So what happened is they had taken all of those Mexican people and by the hundreds and then forced them over on the other side of the border so they can take their land, right? They didn't uphold that. But the thing is that we are actually on both sides of the border. So when people make that as if it's a different type of people coming over, when this is all North America, the continent, they belong to North America, the continent. They're indigenous.
yeah, I know about that, but I'm just saying. I mean, because if you take it that way, then there's Africans, Europeans, and natives on both sides of the border.
Africans aren't from this continent, and they're not indigenous.
No, but I'm saying But my point is, there's Africans. I mean, I think there's like 400 million Africans in Brazil. Like, there's a handful of Africans in Mexico. My point is that there's Africans, Europeans, and natives on every side of every border. So to say,
but they're not indigenous.
But Spaniards aren't indigenous to Mexico.
But they're not Spaniards. They're actually indigenous.
No, I'm not. But I'm saying Spanish people invaded Mexico. I'm saying
we know that.
I'm saying they mixed in together. I'm not saying that Well, I mean,
right. They're mixed. They're mixed indigenous
well, not everybody.
people.
Well, not everybody's mixed though.
Okay, so
like,
punch. I'm trying to punch.
I was just going to respond to her point.
I'm trying to understand. Okay, I'm trying to understand your point. What you're trying to make. Go ahead.
Well, no, she's saying that everybody's mixed in, but like they were. Have y'all seen the George Lopez show? That was on I guess maybe like 10 years ago. I guess it's over now, but like he would have like a lot of Mexican Americans come on his like celebrities. They would come onto his show, and they would do a DNA test. But the majority of the people who did DNA tests on his show were like around like 85 to 90% Spanish. Like a lot of the celebrities that came onto his show were only around like 5 or 10% or 15% indigenous.
Actually,
So-
the percentage in
That's not
Mexico.
true.
I can see the clips. I'm talking about celebrities. I'm not saying that they represent the whole country.
but punch. You can't take everything literal or serious, especially when you're dealing with comedians.
the studies done in Mexico, the Mexican people is actually from 66% on up indigenous DNA.
Well, of course, but I'm saying, but a lot of these people are in different regions. They're not necessarily in the more, richer, upscale parts of the country. So, I mean, we're talking about the people who were coming onto a show were celebrities.
I wonder why
These
that
are
is.
super rich people. Well, obviously the Spaniards dominate the country over the indigenous people. But I'm
No,
saying,
no.
but I'm saying it's still separating. You're still separating Europeans on one side of the border from Europeans on the other side of the border, and saying, okay, well, these people can cross this border, those people can't cross
Well,
this border, but it's
Punch, there's
okay if
no.
they
I don't.
speak this
Look,
language over
Punch. Let
here,
me tell
but
you
not this
something.
language here.
When you say European from one side of the border, look, there's a out of the over 600 million, more than half a billion people in Latin America. There's only a handful of true Europeans in Latin America, and that is due to immigration. Everybody in Latin America, most of the people, is mixed. They're either what you called a mestizo, which is a mixed Native American, and you have your mixed African descendant people. Okay, a lot of those people that you think are that you want to attach this black label, they're not really black. They are mixed. They are indigenous people too, and some of them are mixed with European. Hold on, Jesus, hold on, Jay. All right, so there aren't, like, when you say that we're trying to divide or something, North American, the Europeans from the United States and the European across the other border. That's not. It doesn't really. It's not accurate.
Well, I mean, people here in the United States aren't 100% either. I mean, most people here in the United States have a portion of native DNA and a portion of, African and European DNA here as well. It's
Not
not.
as many as you think.
I mean, most of the
Not as many
African
as you think.
Americans that I know, that when they take a DNA test, they're only
No,
around like 65 to 75%
no,
African. Well, nobody that I've met
no.
has been
There's
more than
if you
75%
if you
African.
actually okay. No, I was gonna say there when you look at the statistics, it says that out of 100 of them, say maybe 2 or 3 are gonna actually have indigenous blood. Most of them that say they have the the long straight hair and the high cheekbones are usually white tea Europeans. They're mixed with European, not natives.
I mean, I've had
And when it
family
comes
members who've
to
actually had.
somebody saying that natives are going to disappear, we're not going nowhere, just to let you know.
Well, no, I
And the
never
ones
made
that
that
are
point.
down south from us, they are also indigenous to these lands. Take that imaginary line away. Those are our family down there. Those are our
Well, 'cause
relatives. The southern,
well, 'cause
those are our southern relatives. Take that imaginary line above us and Canada and up that way. Those are our relatives there too. So we're not going anywhere. Don't think
well,
natives are disappearing. We're not.
my cousin, he did he did like a family tree trace, and he traced our family tree, and we actually had, because I'm in Alabama, and we actually had a Cuban, like I think it was like our great great grandfather. He was Cuban, and he migrated to the United States through Florida, and then he migrated. I guess him or maybe his son went to Alabama. And then I guess we kind of, mixed in with the African American population there in Alabama. But I mean, even in America, I mean, you got people coming in, people are mixing here as well. I mean, like I said, like I have some Cuban, European, African. Like I'm not like 100% just, local African American from Alabama. Like I have Cuban ancestry, European ancestry. Like we're mixed here as well. It's not just like, you know what I mean.
What do you
We
think
speak
of the
English
new?
here.
What do you
Depends
think
how
of the new
that.
phenomenon that's going on right now with the African Americans who don't like to be called African Americans, claiming that they're the real Native Americans, they're the real American Indians? What do you think of that little phenomenon that's going on right now?
I think people are, trying to figure out their history here because I mean it went from Hebrew Israelites to the blacks and Hispanics being the Israelites to now they're saying Native Americans. Before
Natives.
that, it was just all about African, Pan African. So I mean, it seems like every decade or so it kind of swaps around. Who knows what they'll be on in another 10 years from now? But I will give you one thing. Y'all have a lot better unity than we have. I mean, you got Ayana who came up here. She was saying she would, she's more Hispanic than African. Africans, they claim more everything else than African. They'll claim to be a Hispanic before they claim to be African. And she's clearly a black woman up there, but. Like I said, here in America, I mean, Mexican Native Americans aren't 100% Native. What'd you say?
Not to interrupt you, Punch, but I'm not saying I'm not a black woman. I am very much a black woman, and I have no shame in being a black woman. I love everything about my skin tone.
Well, no, but I'm saying, they said,
I'm not one or the other. I have both.
No, but I'm saying the Hispanic guy called you out and was saying that he didn't claim you as a Hispanic.
Yeah, because he likes to think that because I have an African.
I understand that, but I understand the dynamic. I've heard that argument before. I'm just stating the point that they will link up with their Native Americans in America, but you won't link up with the African Americans in America. But you'll link up with the people who are telling you to your face you're not them. So that's just a crazy dynamic to me because they don't tell Native Americans
she's got
in
native
America.
blood. She's native blood.
I've dated.
We got native blood.
She's got native blood. She's native
My
blood.
grandmother has pictures of.
You literally can't say who she is or who she should claim.
Okay, but my grandmother has a picture of her mom, which is a Cherokee. She showed us. I mean,
can I say something?
Did you take a DNA test?
I've actually been with somebody
I've seen the picture that my grandmother showed me of an actual Cherokee.
I've been with somebody who was Puerto Rican. I'm not up here picking one part of my culture or one part of my culture or not. I know what I am. That has nothing to do with
but the guy told you to your face that he don't claim you. And,
that's him.
What are you talking about? I said
I
never denied she wasn't indigenous. I never denied she wasn't indigenous.
In that case, I'm indigenous. My grandmother showed me a picture of her Cherokee mother.
And I respect that. If you claim your indigenous heritage and you can, validate your culture, your traditions, and you carry them on in your traditions, I have no right to say that what you have and don't have based on your.
No, but my point is they didn't claim you, but they claimed their Native American
he didn't claim
brothers
me.
and
the
sisters.
Rest of the people on the panel don't have a problem with me. He didn't claim me.
But I'm saying, when you threw your shot at African Americans, they didn't throw their shot at Native Americans, but you threw your shot at African Americans. They don't do that, but you do.
What did I say against African Americans? I've dated African Americans.
You said that you were saying that you wouldn't date outside of the Hispanic culture.
I said I wouldn't date outside the Latino culture.
Listen. Punch. Okay, wait a minute, Punch. So she's dated African Americans, but she's got the right to choose. Now she wants to choose to date Latinos or indigenous people, and there's nothing wrong with that. And she can go ahead and date a white guy or an African American.
No, I didn't say there was anything wrong with it. I just gave y'all credit for being more unified than black people, because she would throw that shot at African Americans and say, "Oh, but I'm gonna date a Latino," but the Latino said, "I don't claim you," but you know what I mean. But we got the same dynamic that they would have with a Native American. That was all I was saying.
She's mixed differently, and she grew up in a different.
How she mixed differently? If she says she's part.
Hold on. Then she grew up in a different culture than African Americans, and I think some African Americans have a really difficult time especially when it comes to people who have African ancestry in the Caribbean or otherwise. They have a really hard time understanding that.
Okay, but I have Cuban ancestry and Cherokee ancestry. So how's that much different? How is that any different from her?
Are you of the culture?
Can I ask you what food you ate growing up?
What I mean, we share African culture.
Okay.
Oh, just like y'all share Native American culture with Native Americans.
Now, when you say African culture, I want to let you know that between in the United States, in whatever you call African culture, and between Latin America, I want you to know that African culture is a lot more alive and more preserved in Latin America than it is in the United States.
It's also more specific. Like, we can actually say where in Africa we came from. A lot of your records were lost. I'm not throwing shade.
Through DNA testing,
I'm just saying.
DNA testing, we know that most African Americans are from Nigeria.
All right, but what I'm saying is, by my own family, specifically, by my own family tree on my father's side, I know that we are Germanic Moors. So while you're saying that you're African, you can't say that, oh, we share African culture, because ultimately you're saying you're from Nigeria and I'm a Germanic Moor, which even still would
So
put
you're
some
saying the
distance from the
slave ships
family.
didn't go to Jamaica?
What are you talking about, Jamaica?
You said you were Jamaican earlier,
No,
right?
Germanic.
No, but I'm saying,
Germanic
but I'm saying
Moor.
you're Jamaican though, right?
I'm Haitian.
Oh, Haitian. Okay, the same slave ships went to Haiti. That went to Brazil and America.
Well, the Moors left Germany, France, Spain, and Portugal in the early 1500s, and my father's lineage came to Louisiana in 1553 and migrated into Haiti in 1719. I know what part of the world my family came from, what part of Africa, all that stuff. So you're being very broad and you're talking about one group's transatlantic migration into the Americas. We're not even in the same group. You're just being broad about Africa. What we're trying to say is that in Latin American diaspora, we have a more specific pinpoint of where we come from, what groups, what admixtures. If you're Afro-Latino, you're not gonna just say, oh, well, we're
Okay, so
African
what do the
from
Moors
this
have to do with
group.
Mexico?
I never
So
said this had
you
anything to
just
do with Mexico. I'm
no,
only talking about my genetic history because you're making it a point to talk about my genetic
yeah,
history.
but you're talking about a different region who speak. You're talking about speaking
Yeah, they spoke Arabic. They were
Portuguese
Black Arabs.
and Creole.
Can everybody
Which
please tap the screen? Please tap the screen,
I'm
please.
saying,
Go
but you're
ahead.
talking about Portuguese and Creole, and they speak Spanish and Aztec. Those are four different
What?
languages. Those are completely
I don't
different from
speak
one another.
Aztec. What are you talking? I think you're very confused on the history. Here's what I would
No,
suggest.
no. I would say the indigenous language before Spanish, before the Spain, is what I was speaking
Yeah,
on.
from Mexico, right?
Right.
From
That has nothing to
Mesoamerica.
do with her and Haiti.
She
No,
never
it
said
doesn't.
that
We're
it
different
did.
ethnic Latino groups. There's North American indigenous, there's Central American indigenous, there's South American indigenous, there's the Arawak Taino group that originated in Venezuela and entered the Caribbean. There's Carib indigenous. I am a Carib Arawak descendant group. So
Okay,
I
and
do
that
not
has
speak the
nothing to
same
do with
language that
Mexico.
Mexican indigenous people speak.
But that still has nothing to do with Mexico.
I
She
know that.
didn't say it did.
No, she was saying that it would be preserving her culture if she married a Hispanic over an African American.
Oh, okay. So the reason why, okay, so let me try to explain. Because there's a lot more similarities between us. That see in Latin America, even though there is some differentiating factors when it comes to maybe even accents, language, and slightly in culture, nonetheless we still have certain similarities that we can, like for example, I can go to any country in Latin America. It doesn't matter. Any country in Latin America, and I will be able to communicate with every single one of them in whatever, regardless of the country. And we will have certain similarities. We have a dish, we have a food that you can find in just about probably 90, 95, 98% of Latin America, which is an indigenous food, which I think they even have in Puerto Rico, and I think maybe even the Dominican Republic, which is the mighty tamal, the tamale. That is an indigenous food that you will find in just about every single country in Latin America. They have it in South America, they have it in Central America, they have it in Mexico, and I even heard some people in Puerto Rico that have their version of tamale. So there are a lot of similarities that bring us together in spite of the slight differences.
Well, okay, like my cousin, he's married to a girl from Brazil. He's a lawyer. He went to he lived in Florida. He met her in Florida, and I guess she got legalization through marriage with him. But she's Brazilian and she speaks Portuguese. She taught her kids Portuguese, and like Portuguese, Spanish, and English are all very similar. English is not that much different from Spanish. I mean, they got the same letters, and the words really aren't that hard. You can make out some of the words once you get into the languages. They're not that hard to. It's not that hard to go from English to Spanish to Portuguese.
They are two different languages, by the way.
Well, I didn't say they were the same language. I said they're not that different. I have Portuguese. I have
And
Portuguese
Portuguese is
speaking
very
family
different
members.
than Spanish as well.
I think Punch, they
No,
are
no, they're
different,
not.
but I think what you're trying to say is that it would not be too difficult to learn it since their alphabet is kind of similar, right? They have the same kind of
Right.
letters, but it
Right.
wouldn't be too difficult to learn it, but they are different.
Well, but I'm saying the similarities between Portuguese and Spanish is no different than
Spanish is a Latin
Spanish and English.
language. Spanish is a Latin language, and English is a Germanic language.
Okay, but they still have a lot of similarities. I mean, they have the same, pretty much the same alphabet.
Yeah, similarities.
No, not really.
Did you
They're
have
not the same,
anything
though.
that you wanted to add to the conversation? If not, we need to get to the other people so they have a chance to speak.
So native mamas, I know you came up here to express your thoughts and you actually ended up answering Punch, but do you want to come up here and share your original thoughts?
Well, my original thoughts was we're not going nowhere. And yes, our relatives down south are actually indigenous lands, like I said before. I just feel like all this this back and forth about who's is a waste of time. Just saying. I mean, people are who they are, and just accept them. That's it. Period.
Okay, sounds
I
good.
mean, but not pretending and say. But not pretending and say.
The woke man, what's going on?
Oh, I had to come back, yeah, because I was in the comments and there was this there's this girl. She was saying, oh, like, how could you use Europeans as an example of like their culture disappearing, blah blah blah. I kind of want to touch on this for a bit, right? Like the whole term of like native, right? A lot of people kind of don't realize it, but like native, popular, the popular use of the word native usually was for, North American, indigenous people. And then like over time, we kind of started using it for the indigenous of Mexico and then, Latin America and then, Australia with Aboriginals. But what I wanted to say to the girl in the chat was, if you think about it, right, like if your people are from a certain area in the world, they're native to that place. Like, for example, like the Japanese are native to Japan, they would be the quote unquote natives of their land. So what I wanted to say was like, popularity, or this is going to be a controversial opinion because she was trying to say like, oh, there's black Germans. It's like, that's not true. Like the reason there's Africans in Germany right now is because of immigration. Like that's not where they're from. And kind of similar to what Punch was saying too, because he was like, there's black people in Brazil, but it's like, yeah, but they're only there because of the slave trade. Like they're not indigenous to this land. So my whole thing too, again, is like, it's important to preserve.
Spanish aren't indigenous to Mexico either.
Yeah, but we don't have
I'm
any
not saying they're
Spaniards. We
not.
don't have
I'm
any
just saying
Spaniards
that.
there.
I'm not saying they're not. I'm just saying that, don't spread like.
Something to be clarified. I never
let me just
said
clarify.
that they were from Germany. I said when they migrated to the Americas, they left from Germany. They had spent time in Germany because, like you said, Africans were in Europe for some time. They're your closest, neighbors right across from the Mediterranean. You have Hannibal. You could go through all of history to see the relationship between Europe and Africa. All I said was that when they left from Germany to Louisiana, from Louisiana to Haiti. When I said Germanic Moors, it's to just separate the group that migrated because there were Frank Moors.
Let me finish my point before y'all start fighting.
There were Spanish Moors. That's all
And
I'm
that's
saying.
that's a theory.
Hold on.
All right, wait a
You
minute,
can't even
guys.
prove
Wait a
that.
minute.
Finish real quick.
Hold on. Wait a minute. The
Let
woke wants to
Woke finish
okay?
his thoughts.
Go ahead, woke.
Yeah, I'll be real quick too. Like, and this is my larger point, right? Because a lot of people don't know that, for not to be like super, political, but we are talking about like, ethnicities and, colonization and shit. But like China is pretty much taken over Africa. So like, okay, in 200 years, right? If China somehow takes over, let's say, for example, the Congo, are they now Congolese? Like, are they now, the natives of Congo because they pushed them out? I mean, technically, if they're there. So my whole thing, again, was like, it's important to preserve, these places. And, if you want to be super like, I hate to say it, like, if you want to be super liberal, super leftist and be like, this doesn't apply to like certain groups, like, it's not true. It's not, there's natives to all different continents. There's natives to all different countries. And whether you like it or not, like, their culture is important too. So, I mean, But I mean, that's racist or whatever. I'll take the heat, whatever. But yeah, I just want to come back up and say that real quick.
Yeah, the Chinese aren't taking over though. They're actually doing peaceful agreements with China. The Europeans are the
Yeah,
ones
keep
that
thinking
took
that,
over.
buddy. Keep
The
thinking that.
Europeans are the ones that took over.
All right,
the
guys, I'm not going to go into China and what they're doing. So I want to welcome the new person here, Augustinian Alexander. How you doing?
Hey, I'm pretty good. How about you guys?
Hey, we're just chilling here, man. What do you think about the topic, man? What would you like to add here?
So I'm kind of divided on it. I know you don't like the word segregation, but it seems to me, it sounds like what would the word be? Self, I guess self-regulated segregation. That's the only thing I can think of.
Self-preservation.
If you want to use a positive term, I guess you could say that. But I'm
I
kind of divided
prefer
on
a
the whole thing.
positive than a negative.
Well, I guess
What makes it segregation though in your eyes? Like no one's saying they're supposed to be excluded, like by law. So like, because that's what segregation was by law. You're not allowed to be a part.
so. That's why I say it's like self-enforced because the government's not involved. So if you do it yourself, it's a different story. But I mean, again, I'm divided on it because I understand some of the perspectives. Because my family's from Mexico. I've been to Mexico City, so I have seen some of the expats that live there and stuff like that. But on the other hand, it's like Mexico's a pretty diverse place in general. I mean, we've had immigrants from the Middle East that moved in, and a big reason that we have a lot of the food that we have in Mexico is because they are in the land. And that's kind of the beauty about Mexico, because as much as people say that America is a very diverse country, Mexico is actually the same way, and in a lot more, and in more ways than the U.S. because it seems to be more mixed rather than kind of like
But
separated.
Mexican food itself is primarily indigenous. So does it have some, like Spanish influence or African influence? Absolutely, right? But primarily, it is indigenous that can be traced back. There's dishes still eaten that traces back thousands of years.
Yeah, al pastor is basically shawarma, from Arabic countries.
Yeah, that's one point. So
Hey, I
I'm
got
not
you to
against
say
the
them.
whole immigrants contributing to Mexico.
Well, let me
Because
ask you
they're
this though.
important.
Well, let me ask you this though. I mean, but where is the line? Where do you draw the line? I mean, that's the whole argument, right? Like, how much immigration is too much to the point where the natives are gone?
No, I
I mean-
100% agree. Because, I mean, to give credit to Callie X, I think that's her name. Yeah, you don't want a place that you don't want like Mexico City just literally taken over by like Europeans, and you basically have boroughs that are like just gone, just a completely different culture and everything. But
Yeah.
on the other hand, you
even the
can't just
United
kick out
States is going to
immigrants.
be majority minority in like 10 or 15 more years. I mean,
I mean, about your theory about blacks not being indigenous to Americans, bro. Yeah, you still ain't got no proof of what you saying blacks not from America. Y'all ain't show no proof yet. Your ships don't line up to y'all lies. And the mounds show all the photos, the evidence of blacks
Okay,
being here.
okay,
Hold
wait,
on,
wait,
hold
We
on.
have
okay, wait,
opinion.
wait. Alkaline,
So,
alkaline.
We're
Okay, wait a minute, hold
absolutely
on.
not doing
No,
this.
wait a minute. I wanted to hear
Yeah.
what he wanted to say. I couldn't understand him because he was talking very loud and he sounded muffled. What was he saying?
He was basically saying that he's one of those pretendians that think
Yeah.
that they're the mound builders and the land is theirs.
No, I'm
and
not. I'm
The
not
real
even going to waste
American
my time
Indians.
talking about.
Yeah,
No. I mean,
we're
I'm
not
not going to
doing
give
that.
him. Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Go to the circus, man. Go entertain at the circus, man. Augustine, is that you wanted to add something more before I let Ghost go?
No, that's basically it.
Okay, man. Ghost, what's going on, man? How you doing?
What's up, bro? I'm all right.
What do you think,
Phil.
man? What are your thoughts?
You already know what the fuck I think. You know what I'm saying? But like Augustine was saying, this whole pie in the sky fucking, inclusive ass shit. Look, check it out, bro. This is the way of the world. This is why we have tribes throughout the entire planet Earth. You know what I mean? Because this is the way that people are. This is cultural preservation, and ain't nothing wrong with cultural preservation. You know what I mean? So we're tired of people, on the one hand, they sit up there and said, Mexican ain't a race. Mexican ain't a race. They love saying that shit, right? They get real giddy when they get to say that. So then when we actually try to preserve what it is that we are and what we've become, then some people have a problem with it. You know what I mean? And this idea that Augustinian, again, I don't think he was being like a hater, but I'm saying, oh, but this other thing contributed. All right, man. Any recipe, you know what I mean, might have a pinch of salt here and there, but you can't overlook, you know what I mean, the majority of what makes up the meal. You know what I mean? So that's what I feel. And I came in on the tail end of what Ayana was saying or whatever, and I just always have to correct the facts. When they try to claim, Moors and North Africans, they don't have nothing to do with sub-Saharan Africans. There's a giant desert separating them from each other, okay? Those are the Amazigh people. Put respect on their name. They're Berber. They didn't have nothing to do with the sub-Saharan Africans. All the bones that you dig up, whether it be in the Canary Islands or whether it be in Morocco or any of those regions, that ain't you, okay? They have a distinct genetic lineage. So I'm just saying, y'all got to stop hijacking everybody else's shit. That's
Actually,
what
she also identified as a Latina and Afro-Latina too, amongst other things. I mean, I don't know. I'm not even going to get into the Berber
I came in
Moor
late,
thing. It's
but
not really my field.
Yeah, lies are lies, and I'm just calling that out. But as far as should we preserve our culture, you goddamn right we should. The same way that everybody else has a right to do that, that's what we're gonna do. Okay?
Can I ask Ghost a question? Well,
Go ahead.
Ghost, does other people just simply being around you destroy your culture?
Sometimes.
So what
look
about
at TikTok, for example, right? I mean, we want peace, right?
I'm not sure if you were here when I mentioned it before. Oh, hold on. Somebody's outside being ridiculous. So I don't know if when you came in the live, but that was one of the themes that I had mentioned earlier, that if you look at, I used Mexico City as an example. I'm sure there's many other places, but if you look at Mexico City, because there's so many expats coming from Canada and the United States and Europe and whatnot, that they are saying that their food is too spicy and demanding the restaurant to, make it less spicy. And then they're also complaining because while they're in Mexico, they're too lazy to learn Spanish, so they are demanding that they speak English. So you're hearing English more and more in Mexico City. The food's becoming less spicy. So already, just those couple of things,
I don't
it's
think that
already
destroys
changing.
the culture, though. I mean, if
Well,
if they're eating the food, they gotta have it
if the
spiced the way they
language is
want it.
part of the culture,
I
the
can
food is
respond to
part
him.
of the culture.
Well, are we destroying Mexicans' culture that come to America?
I can answer
There's
it.
too many y'all that come. Let me ask you this question. Since you wanted to pose that question to me, right? Since you wanted to please to pose that question towards me, what about the African American community in Chicago who's been up in arms for the last 2 years, sighing and crying over, Venezuelan immigrants being in Chicago, right? So on the one hand, you guys are like, oh, we just want to be all one, you want it to be a one-way street. You want to be to go in other people's neighborhoods and immerse in their culture, but it can't be the other way around. So when Venezuelans was coming up in the Chicago, on the south side of Chicago, you got a big problem with that, or your people. You know what I mean? So before
I'm not from Chicago, but the people I know from Chicago, they were saying that it was like false media and that they were actually getting
Nah. Nope.
Are you in Chicago?
They big mad. Sometimes I'm in Chicago. Yes, I am. And they big mad, because they're saying this is our neighborhood and this and that. It's all over the place, right?
Because I actually saw a lot of videos where the Venezuelans were fighting with actual Mexicans in a lot of places.
Man, that's a lie, bro. You would like to know that, right? And some, we're gonna deal with traitors, right? So there's a couple people who they're not on point, but again, I assume that you asked that question. You says, "Oh, so does other people come in and what was the question?"
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure it's more Mexicans than Venezuelans that come to the United States than the other way around.
Okay, so you should pretty much proving my point, right? So let's say 2% of in a Southside Chicago neighborhood, which they're claiming this is a black neighborhood, this is this and that, which ain't true. You know what I mean? Because they came up from the South in the 60s. You know what I mean? So maybe they've been there 30, 40 years or whatever, but already they big mad when Venezuelans come up in Southside Chicago. So you can't. This is what constantly happens. You guys. And I'm not necessarily saying this about you, but that's what I got from your question, right? It's always accusatory towards us. Like,
well, I'm in Alabama. And we don't have that issue in Alabama, so I don't know.
Well, because y'all, it's a black and white society in Alabama.
We have a lot of Mexican immigrants coming here.
Not really, bro. I've been down there too.
Yeah, so, when I was in high school,
can I say something? You can't be an immigrant on your own land.
Well, I mean, like you said, all that stuff happened, 400 or 500 years ago. So I have no idea who, stole what from who.
Hey, Punch. Punch. Let me ask you a question, right?
Right.
Because you said, is it a problem if I think you said something like, how are they destroying your country just being around you, right? Or something like that.
The culture. Yeah, the culture.
Yeah. Okay, so let me explain how, right? There's a certain country right now, and I'm not going to say the name, but there's a certain country right now that doesn't allow any immigration because basically what would happen, right? And this is happening in, certain states.
What country is this?
I'm not going to say the name, but you can kind of, just think about it. Anyways, there's this country that, they don't allow any immigration. And the reason for that is because if you get, mass immigration, here's the thing about diversity that they don't really tell you. Diverse groups, they don't all think the same, right? They have different values and different traditions. So
I don't know a country that don't allow immigration. As far as I know, they're at least letting Africans in, if nothing else.
Well, let me just finish this point.
Is he talking about Isri?
I'm not saying it, but let me.
They actually do have immigrants coming in there.
Let me say this though, right? If your country's a certain, ethnic group, that's their home, whatever. If you have mass immigration, like I said, people are diverse. They think differently. They have different traditions. They have different culture. If you get enough of them, you could change the traditions and the values of your country. We've seen it happen in states. We've seen it happen in other countries today. That's the problem with, too much immigration. And it's not wrong to preserve your country. It's not wrong to preserve your culture. But so, to answer your question of, does them being around destroy your culture? Like, yeah, it can. Potentially it can.
Well, if all the Mexicans are coming to America, somebody got to come in and keep their economy going. I mean, because our Mexican population is blooming here.
America's different, right? Like, America's different. I'll say that. I'm not going to get super into a controversial opinion.
I'm just saying somebody got to go over there and keep the economy going if they are coming here.
Let me give you an example, right? I live in California, right? There's a city called Diamond Bar. 100%, like majority of the population is Asian. So, the way they vote in the local government matches their traditions of, their culture, whatever. I think they're all Vietnamese. So basically what I'm trying to say is like, you'll have pockets like this throughout the United States where like certain cities are one ethnic group and they vote a certain way. So it's like for those cities, it does affect because, prominently before like, I want to say 1960, majority of the cities in America were white. So it's like, this is a controversial opinion, whatever. If you don't like it, whatever, it's a fact, These places, they'll lose that identity and then a new culture will come in. I'm not saying it's bad or good. I'm just saying it happens. Like it's a thing that happens. So my whole point is, like let's take for Mexico, for example, if they got a sudden wave of, Chinese immigrants and they eventually overpopulated the country, they could vote a certain way and, their culture would be the dominant culture that takes over Mexico. Like that's the example pretty much that I'm going to use for that.
Well, yeah, and that's a perfect example, and that's what's happening in the United States. Most of those small pockets that you're talking about,
Yeah.
they're turning Mexican. They're turning
Yeah, but
Mexican here in the United
it's not just
States.
Mexican though.
It
It's
means
Asian. It's Arabic.
Yeah, but
But for example,
it's
hey,
more Asians may only
look
make
at
up like
Minnesota.
3% of
Do
the
you have a
United States.
punch? Do you have an issue with Mexican people?
No, I don't. I'm just saying if more of them are, if you got that many Mexicans coming here to the
Hey,
United
punch.
States, then what's the difference in them going
But
there? I mean,
they're not coming to the United States.
The
We are
United
in
States
the
is different
United
though.
States. And
but
actually,
that's
hold
still
on.
a huge.
Actually, if you look at statistics, the majority of Mexicans are actually either staying in Mexico or they're going back to Mexico. So those who are crossing the border are actually coming from other countries and not, they're going through Mexico, but they're not actual Mexicans.
Well, here and where I'm at, we only have Mexicans. We don't have like a diverse population of people here. It's black, white, Mexican where I'm at, and the Mexican
Punch,
community is
punch,
growing. The white
Ooh,
community
punch.
is
Hey,
shrinking.
punch. So
punch,
we
punch, punch. Can you keep in mind that when you say Mexicans, they're actually indigenous to these lands, so they're not going. This is their land. I
Well,
don't
I'm not
understand
arguing
why.
that they aren't. I'm
hold
just
on.
saying that. I'm
You
just
make
saying
it
that
sound like it's a problem that they're
I
here.
didn't say it's a
They have
problem.
every
I'm
right
just
to
saying.
be
I'm
here.
just saying if they're coming here, then somebody's got to go there to keep their economy going. If
Hey,
they're coming
punch.
here,
Let me ask you this, punch. Right? I'm a big fan of black culture. Right?
Right.
I do because I'm American. You know, I'm used to all different cultures. But how would you like it? Right? Like, can we kind of agree that Alabama does have like a strong black culture there?
yeah, it's one of the blackest states in the
Yeah.
United
So
States.
okay. So how do you think that certain section of black culture would feel if let's say suddenly a bunch of Greeks moved in and then just they became the dominant ethnic group in Alabama, and all of a sudden Alabama was known for Greek culture. I'm pretty sure the black culture would feel pissed off. Like historically, that's a black state.
Well, I mean, it's not predominantly black; it's still predominantly white. But I mean, the culture is changing. Like I said,
I
the
would argue
culture is
that
turning more Hispanic.
I would argue that black and white are the largest. That's the largest cultures in the South. Period.
Well, yeah. Well, but I mean, it's still like I think like 60% European. But I'm saying it's becoming more Hispanic. I mean, just in my lifetime alone, I think the Hispanic community's tripled.
Check it
Well,
out.
yeah,
Like
but that's because we believe in family and staying with the family. That's our number one thing. So we encourage having babies. Like we encourage taking care of our families.
From his
Right.
perspective, if I may, real quick, I've lived down south. I've been down south. I think a lot of these people, it is a black world, white world down there, right?
Yeah.
So when they see anybody outside of that, so to him, a 3% influx or whatever, it's something new. So like I understand what he's saying from his perspective, right? But to anybody who lives out west, we already know what time it is, right? And again, this is only because the mass elimination of native peoples from the South. I was disgusted when I went up to Buffalo, New York, and I went to the Niagara Falls, and it was only me there. I see nothing but a bunch of foreigners. This is how I think with as an indigenous person to this land. When I'm walking around and some may say, "Oh man, you're this or you're that," no, because I'm the only one there, and I see Hindus and people from India and blacks and whites, and I'm like, bro, this is a travesty. I get pissed, bro. I'm always on the offensive because I don't even see none of my people, and this is a beautiful spot, the Niagara Falls, but we're all dead. I constantly live in history. It's a travesty to me, and I roll to the South, I roll through Georgia. And so when I hear these narratives, right, of other people trying to claim my heritage, it's like, it's on the top of our graves even, you know what I mean? Because I'll roll through in Alabama, I'll roll through in Mississippi, I'll roll through in Louisiana, and there's not a single one of us. And it's a travesty. And then on top of that, to hear them then on our graves, try to sit up there and claim what we are, it's the biggest disrespect ever. I ain't gonna lie, I'm gonna mark somebody over that if they do it in real life. I'm just keeping it real.
All right, all right, guys. So hold on. You guys can answer a little bit
into it. I mean, race didn't exist until like 1492. So it's like,
I mean, and we can also make it a race if we really wanted to. I mean, the new racial category that's coming out in 2024 is completely it's a whole different thing now. Now you have under the racial category of African American or Black American, Latinos are nowhere on the category. Nowhere on the category.
You know what sucks too?
It's only Jamaican, Somalian, Nigerian, African American, and Haitian. That is all. Latinos, they have their own category itself, and then you have under the white T. They're no longer including people from Egypt, people from the Middle East. Now they have their own category. So things are changing.
Do you have
Things
a
are
problem with
definitely
them
changing.
actually just claiming indigenous?
Let me say this too, because like they
I'm just
try to say
asking.
like they try to say stuff like Mexican isn't a race, but I mean if you look at Mexican people, like we have certain like phenotypes like broad shoulders, big heads. Like I'm be real, I got a big head, and it's just like we have that more bulkier like that I don't. It sounds cringe, but like we have that more like bulkier warrior look. You know what I mean?
Canelo has that wide
Well,
shoulders.
that-
He looks
bro,
indigenous.
I'm gonna tell you, okay, and I'm going to tell you something, man. And
I thought
we do.
Canelo-
We, it's funny. What happened to him, dude? No, what happened? He dropped. All right. So, anyways, man. Yeah, you're happy. Look, it's funny that you said that because I said this earlier, man. It is by no mistake that here in the Americas is where the best warriors exist. The best MMA fighters, the best boxers in the world are here in the Americas, whether it's North America or in Mexico. And then you have every now and then you got others from Latin America with South America, and Puerto Rico has had really, really good boxers, have gone toe to toe with Mexicans, man. And in many cases, they beat Mexicans before. But for the most part, it's been Mexico to lead the way south. So now you really have to kind of break it down and ask yourself, why is that? So if we have black and white people here that excel in boxing and MMA, and we have Mexican people here, and why is that? Why don't they, if it's the white gene, why don't we see them coming out of Europe or England? If it's the black gene, why don't we see them coming out from Africa? You know what it is? Most people are mixed with our blood, bro, with the indigenous blood.
Yeah,
That
not
is,
to get on some,
really, I don't want to sound all freaking, just to toot my own horn, but really, come on, bro, come on, put your detective
not to sound like
hat on.
not to sound like the equivalent to like I'm on some Hotep stuff, but like no, realistically, like we do have certain body features that no one else has. Like on average, we're short, we're stocky, and yeah, we make great fighters. But again, like I feel like this is like I don't want, like I said, I don't want to get too like cringe or whatever, but yeah, I mostly see this come from liberals where they're like they just want to put us in either two boxes, either you're black or you're white. Straight up. Like I'm just calling it as it is. They try to do that, so it's like they'll call Latinos, Hispanics, whatever. They'll be like, "You're white. You're not."
Yeah, and not only that, they push the Latinx. I'm like, not only are we not a race, but we're also Latinx. Like, no.
That has to do because we have not shown ourselves to be an assertive people. We haven't been loud. We haven't been outspoken. But that is slowly starting to change. And lives like this is only proof that a lot of our people are beginning to wake up, and we're having these conversations. And these conversations, like you mentioned earlier, the woke, they're important to have because based on these conversations, people are getting either not, educated for the information that everybody on this panel shares, and that they take that home with them and they think about it and they share, and then they start having conversations similar to the ones that we generate here. So I like having these conversations because it spreads the word.
I say like this too, right? Again, not to sound controversial, but like if you can choose your gender, it's like my whole thing is like, dude, how are you trying to tell us what we are? Like you're picking for us what we are, dude, and you're putting us in a box, and I just don't like that, and I only ever hear that from these liberals, dude.
Yeah, it's freaking. Well, I've actually heard it from both sides, but yeah, mainly. I mean,
the pro-Trump, Latinos for Trump, situation. They say they're white and stuff, white tea.
Yeah. And you know that you remember you guys heard of the Passport Bros, right?
Yeah, my friends.
The Passport Bros are majority conservatives. All right, the Passport Bros, and